Working the night shift at a convenience store was not Amanda's dream job, but it paid the bills while she studied part-time. Located on the edge of a small, sleepy town, the store rarely had more than a few customers after midnight. Most nights were uneventful, and Amanda appreciated the solitude. She brought books, worked on assignments, and passed the hours in quiet. On this particular night, Amanda clocked in at 11 p.m. The evening cashier, Greg, waved goodbye as he handed her the keys to the register. "Quiet night so far," he said. "Let's hope it stays that way." The first few hours were uneventful. A couple of truckers came in for coffee, and a teenager bought some chips and a soda. Around 2 a.m., Amanda stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The parking lot was empty except for a single car parked at the far end, its windows fogged up. It had been there since she arrived, but she assumed it belonged to someone sleeping off a long drive. Back inside, she returned to organizing the shelves, occasionally glancing at the clock. At 3 a.m., the doorbell chimed, signaling a customer. A man in his 40s walked in. He was tall, with unkempt hair and wearing a dark jacket. He didn't look homeless, but there was a disheveled quality to him that made Amanda uneasy. He walked to the back of the store and stood in front of the refrigerated drinks for what felt like an unusually long time. "Can I help you find something?" Amanda called out, trying to keep her tone neutral. The man didn't respond. He stood still, staring at the drinks. Amanda felt a prickle of unease but decided to leave him alone. She returned to the counter and watched him from the corner of her eye. After nearly 10 minutes, the man finally walked up to the counter with a single bottle of water. Amanda rang him up and gave him a polite smile. "That'll be $1.50. The man handed her 2 crumpled dollar bills and said nothing. As she handed him his change, he stared at her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. She tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the cash register. "Have a good night," she said, hoping to end the interaction. The man didn't move. He stood there, staring at her. "Is there something else I can help you with?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. The man smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that felt more like a warning. "You work alone here, don't you?" Amanda's heart skipped a beat. She forced a laugh, trying to hide her discomfort. "Not really. My manager's in the back." It was a lie, but she hoped it would deter him. The man nodded slowly, as if considering her words. Then, without another word, he walked out of the store. Amanda exhaled a shaky breath and locked the door behind him. For the next hour, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she glanced out the window, she half expected to see the man staring back at her. At 4:30 a.m., the doorbell chimed again. Amanda froze. She hadn't unlocked the door. The man was back. "How did you get in?" she demanded, her voice trembling. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the middle of the store and sat down on the floor, crossing his legs like a child. Amanda's hands shook as she reached for her phone. "I'm calling the police," she said, her voice firmer now. The man tilted his head, studying her. "You shouldn't lie," he said softly. Amanda's blood ran cold. She dialed 911, keeping her eyes on him as she described the situation to the operator. The man didn't move, didn't speak. He just sat there, staring at her with that same unnerving smile. When she finished the call, she stayed on the line, the operator reassuring her that officers were on their way. Amanda backed into the corner behind the counter, putting as much distance between herself and the man as possible. Minutes felt like hours. The man remained seated, his eyes never leaving her. Finally, the sound of sirens broke the tense silence. The man's expression changed for the first time. He frowned, got to his feet, and walked out of the store. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. Amanda described the man and the events of the night. The officers searched the area but found no trace of him. They promised to keep an eye on the store and suggested she have someone accompany her on future shifts. For the rest of her shift, Amanda couldn't focus. Every shadow, every sound set her on edge. The next day, she spoke to her manager about what happened. Security footage confirmed everything she told the police, but it also revealed something chilling. At 2 a.m., When Amanda stepped outside for fresh air, the man had been sitting in the parked car. The footage showed him watching her through the windshield, motionless, for several minutes before she went back inside. Amanda quit her job a week later. Cameron took the night shift at a convenience store for its quietness. After years of chaotic restaurant work, he appreciated the solitude. The store, tucked on the outskirts of a small town, rarely saw more than a handful of customers between midnight and dawn. Most nights, Cameron sat behind the counter, scrolling through his phone or reading a book, only interrupted by the occasional trucker or insomniac looking for snacks or cigarettes. It was a rainy Thursday night when something unsettling happened, something Cameron would never forget. The evening started as usual. A couple of regulars dropped by early in his shift, their conversations brief but familiar. By midnight, the rain had picked up, hammering against the windows in steady sheets. Cameron brewed himself a cup of coffee and settled into the creaky stool behind the counter. At around 1:30 a.m., the automatic doors whooshed open, letting in a man drenched from the rain. He was wearing a dark jacket and jeans, his hood pulled up so Cameron couldn't clearly see his face. The man paused at the entrance, water pooling beneath his shoes, and looked around the store. "Rough night out there, huh?" Cameron said, offering a friendly smile. The man didn't respond. He walked slowly down one of the aisles, his movements deliberate, almost sluggish. Cameron figured he was tired or maybe even drunk. For the next several minutes, the man wandered the aisles aimlessly. He didn't pick anything up, didn't even seem to be looking for anything. He would stop, stand motionless for a while, then move to another aisle. Cameron felt his unease grow with each passing moment. "Let me know if you need help finding something," Cameron called out, trying to break the tension. The man still didn't respond. At one point, he disappeared from Cameron's view. Cameron leaned to the side, trying to see where he had gone, but the aisles blocked his line of sight. He felt a nervous flutter in his chest. After a few minutes of silence, Cameron decided to check on him. He walked out from behind the counter and started down the aisles. The man wasn't there. Cameron checked each aisle, his unease growing with every step. The store wasn't big, and there weren't many places to hide. Yet the man was nowhere to be seen. Confused, Cameron checked the stockroom in the back, even though it was locked, and no one had access except employees. The door was still locked. He returned to the front of the store and looked outside. The parking lot was empty. Cameron rubbed the back of his neck, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He replayed the scene in his mind. He was sure he had seen the man come in. The water on the floor near the entrance was proof of that. But where had he gone? Shaking his head, Cameron decided to let it go. Maybe the man had slipped out while he wasn't looking. It was odd, but not impossible. The rest of the night passed uneventfully, though Cameron couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every now and then, he glanced at the security monitors, half expecting to see the man's face staring back at him. The next morning, when the day shift cashier arrived, Cameron told her about the strange man. She laughed it off, saying he was probably just a weirdo. That might have been the end of it, but something about the incident kept nagging at Cameron. After his shift ended, he asked his manager if he could review the security footage. The footage confirmed what he remembered. At 1:30 a.m., the man entered the store. He wandered the aisles for several minutes, pausing now and then. But here was the strange part. At 1:38 a.m., the man turned down the middle aisle and walked toward the back of the store. He didn't reappear. Cameron replayed the footage, his heart pounding. There was no exit at the back of the store, no way for the man to leave without being seen. The manager, who had been watching over Cameron's shoulder, frowned. Maybe the cameras glitched, he suggested. Cameron wasn't convinced. He knew what he had seen. Over the next few weeks, Cameron tried to put the incident out of his mind. But then, something else happened. One night, at around the same time, 1:30 a.m., the automatic doors opened. Cameron looked up, expecting to see a customer, but no one came in. The doors closed, then opened again a few seconds later. "Hello," Cameron called out, his voice echoing in the empty store. There was no response. For the rest of his shift, the doors opened and closed at irregular intervals, as if someone were entering and leaving the store. Cameron checked the parking lot several times, but it was always empty. The incidents became more frequent. Each time, Cameron felt a growing sense of dread. He eventually quit, unable to shake the feeling that something or someone was still in that store. Derek had been working night shifts at a convenience store for nearly a year. It was a monotonous job, but the steady income and flexible hours allowed him to attend college during the day. The store was located on a quiet highway just outside the city, and most nights were uneventful. The usual customers were long-haul truckers, late-night travelers, and the occasional insomniac looking for snacks. One Friday night, just past midnight, Derek was behind the counter scrolling through his phone when a man entered the store. He looked to be in his late 30s, wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his face and a jacket that seemed too bulky for the mild weather. "Evening," Derek said, offering his usual polite greeting. The man gave a slight nod but didn't respond. He walked straight to the beverage section and grabbed a can of soda. Derek thought nothing of it until the man approached the counter, his eyes scanning the store in an unusual way. "Anything else for you tonight?" Derek asked as he rang up the soda. The man didn't answer. Instead, he placed the exact change on the counter and walked out without a word. Derek shrugged it off. People were weird sometimes, especially at odd hours. Over the next hour, the same man returned twice. Each time, he bought a single item, a pack of gum on the second visit and a small bag of chips on the third. He didn't speak, didn't make eye contact, and each time he left, Derek noticed him glancing over his shoulder as though he was being followed. By the fourth visit, Derek's unease began to grow. The man entered the store again, but this time he didn't pick anything up. He walked slowly down each aisle, occasionally pausing as if he were listening for something. "Can I help you find something?" Derek asked, his voice tinged with nervousness. The man didn't respond. Instead, he turned and walked out of the store without buying anything. Derek watched him through the window as he walked toward the edge of the parking lot. There was no car there, no bike, nothing to indicate how the man had arrived. He simply stood at the edge of the lot, staring into the darkness of the highway beyond. The strange visits continued throughout the night. Every hour or so, the man would come back, each time acting a little more unsettling. On his fifth visit, he stood near the counter for several minutes without saying a word before leaving abruptly. On the sixth, he asked for a cigarette lighter, but when Derek handed it to him, he didn't light anything. Instead, he stared at the flame for an unnervingly long time before setting the lighter down and walking out. By 4 a.m., Derek was on edge. The man had visited the store 7 times, and Derek couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched even when the man wasn't inside. At 4:15 a.m., the man entered the store for the 8th time. This time, he didn't even pretend to shop. He walked up to the counter and leaned in close, his face just inches from Derek's. "You've been here all night," the man said, his voice low and raspy. Yeah, it's my shift," Derek replied, trying to sound casual even though his heart was racing. The man tilted his head, studying Derek like he was trying to figure something out. "It's a long shift. Must get lonely." Derek forced a laugh. "Not really. Keeps me busy." The man smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "You're all alone here, aren't you?" Derek's stomach tightened. He decided to lie. "Not really. My manager's in the back." The man's expression didn't change. He leaned in even closer. "You shouldn't lie. It's not good for your health." Derek felt a chill run down his spine. "Is there something you need?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The man straightened up, adjusted his cap, and walked out of the store without another word. Derek immediately locked the doors. He knew it wasn't standard procedure, but he couldn't take any chances. He spent the next hour jumping at every sound, his eyes darting to the security monitors and the windows. At 5:30 a.m., just before his shift ended, Derek stepped outside to breathe and clear his head. The parking lot was empty, the first light of dawn creeping over the horizon. He was about to go back inside when he noticed something on the ground near the entrance. It was a crumpled piece of paper. Derek picked it up and unfolded it. Scrawled in uneven handwriting were the words, "See you next time." Derek's heart pounded as he looked around the parking lot again, but there was no one in sight. He went back inside, locked the doors, and waited for his coworker to arrive. When his shift ended, he told his manager about the strange man and handed over the note. The manager promised to review the security footage and report the incident to the police if necessary. Derek didn't wait to find out what happened. He quit the next day, unwilling to spend another night wondering when or if the man would come back.